Can you give us a break? Breaking this record, breaking that record. The only one to ever do this in the WNBA. The only one to do that in the WNBA. I mean, come on. Give us a break. Now, here we are. Caitlin Clark, the only WNBA player ever to be on a global...
That is the sound of the glass ceiling. Not just shattering, but being completely pulverized by the digital age of sports marketing. For years, the conversation around women's basketball has been dominated by the same tired debates about ratings, revenue splits, and television deals. But today, the metric for absolute superstardom has shifted. It is no longer just about who is wearing your jersey in the arena. It is about who is representing the billion-dollar gaming industry on a global scale. We are looking at a paradigm shift in real time. For the first time in the history of the franchise, a WNBA player is not being relegated to a regional alternate cover or a specialty edition that you have to special order from a boutique retailer. She is the face of the premium top-tier global product, the NBA 2K Deluxe Edition. This is the undisputed prime real estate of basketball culture, and they just handed the keys to the rookie.
Yeah, we've had the Angel Reeses of the past, and the Asia Wilsons, and Sabrina, and Diana That was the WNBA edition. That was the edition that nobody wanted.
To truly understand the gravity of this move, you have to look at the history of how the 2K franchise has handled the WNBA up until this exact moment. When they first introduced the WNBA edition a few years back, it was celebrated as a milestone, and in many ways it was. You had legends like Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, and eventually current stars like Sabrina Ioanu gracing the box. But let us be completely honest about what that edition actually represented in the broader gaming ecosystem. It was a variant. It was an alternative cover designed for a specific niche demographic. It was a secondary option sitting behind whoever the primary NBA superstar was that year. It felt like a polite gesture from a massive corporation, a nod to the growing influence of the women's game. But it was absolutely not the main event. Retailers stocked it in limited quantities. And in the digital storefronts, it was often buried beneath the standard and premium editions of the men's game. It was an addition, not the foundation. But what we are seeing right now is the complete dismantling of that tiered system. The deluxe edition is not a polite gesture. It is the core financial engine of the 2K release cycle next.
Yeah, fan, I need your support. If you're one of those, then maybe you'll get the WNBA edition. Maybe you'll dip into that bag. But Caitlin Clark's on the deluxe edition. That means if you want the deluxe edition and all of the perks that come with it, you're getting a game with Caitlin Clark on the cover.
This is where the economics of modern video games come into play, and it is the exact reason why this decision is so monumental. The deluxe edition of any sports title is where the publisher makes their highest margins. This is the package that comes loaded with virtual currency, exclusive My Team packs, early access privileges, and digital cosmetics. It is priced at a premium, usually hovering around the $100 mark, and it is targeted squarely at the most dedicated hardcore segment of the player base. These are the players who spend hundreds of hours and often hundreds of additional dollars inside the game's ecosystem. By putting a player on this specific cover, Take-Two Interactive is not just making a cultural statement. They are making a massive financial calculation. They are betting their most lucrative product tier on her ability to drive pre-orders and premium sales. They are looking at the engagement numbers, the merchandise sales, and the sheer volume of digital traffic she commands. And they are essentially saying that she is a stronger commercial anchor for their premium product than dozens of established NBA veterans. This isn't about representation anymore. It is about cold, hard conversion rates. Next.
Caitlin Clark on the cover. Absolutely loved. This should have happened year one. This should have happened year two. But you know what? They're not just going to throw her on the WNBA edition like Angel Reese and Asia Wilson. She's not going to get a participation trophy like...
Right there is the uncomfortable truth that is going to ruffle a lot of feathers across the league. But it is impossible to ignore. The concept of the participation trophy has plagued the way corporations have marketed women's sports for decades. There has always been this underlying sense of obligation, a feeling that brands were checking a demographic box rather than capitalizing on genuine organic demand. We saw it with the previous iterations of the WNBA covers. They were historic, yes, but they were also safe. They were compartmentalized. But this maneuver skips the line entirely. You do not get the deluxe edition cover as a favor. You do not get the global premium marketing budget because a PR department decided it was the right thing to do for optics. You get it because you are the undisputed center of the basketball universe right now. The market dictates the cover, and the market has spoken with a volume we have never seen before. The traditional timeline dictates that you pay your dues, you build your resume over 5 or 6 years, you win a couple of MVP awards, and then maybe you get into the conversation for a premium global cover. She completely bypassed the waiting room.
Now, last year, you had the WNBA edition with Angel Reese, the WNBA edition with Angel, and this year, we have Caitlin Clark. Folks, this is the biggest upgrade since we ditched BlackBerries for iPhones.
The technology analogy here is actually incredibly fitting, because we are talking about a total systemic upgrade in how an entire sport is packaged and sold to the masses. Think about the cultural footprint of the NBA 2K franchise. For an entire generation of basketball fans, this game is their primary point of contact with the sport. It is how they learn the rosters. It is how they understand the salary cap, and it is how they determine who matters in the hierarchy of the league. The cover athlete is the ambassador to millions of casual fans who might never buy a league pass or attend a game in person. By elevating a WNBA star to this specific pedestal, the publisher is actively rewriting the cultural algorithm. They are signaling to a massive global audience that the women's game is no longer an auxiliary feature to be toggled on or off in the main menu. It is the headline. This level of visibility does not just upgrade her brand. It forces a complete recalibration of how the gaming community interacts with women's basketball. The ripple effects of this single marketing decision will be felt across television networks, sneaker brands, and endorsement deals for the next decade.
The only one who's going to be seen globally. So if you're in Europe and you want a deluxe edition, you gotta get 2K. Gotta get the CC cover. If you're in Australia and you want the deluxe...
This is where the sheer scale of the situation comes into full focus. We are talking about true unfiltered international distribution. The regional WNBA covers of the past were largely a North American phenomenon. If you walked into a gaming retailer in London or fired up the PlayStation Network in Sydney or Tokyo, you were seeing the standard NBA superstar front and center. The alternate covers simply did not have the global supply chain behind them. But the Deluxe Edition is a universal asset. It is the flagship product pushed to every single digital storefront on the planet simultaneously. That means a teenager logging on in Paris or a streamer booting up in Melbourne is going to be greeted by the exact same visual. There is no alternative option. There is no regional variant to hide behind. This forces international audiences, many of whom may have zero prior exposure to the WNBA, to immediately recognize her as a peer to the biggest names in the men's league. It has forced global integration, and it completely shatters the regional ceiling that has historically limited the international marketability of female basketball players. The exposure matrix here is almost impossible to quantify, but it guarantees that her digital likeness will be in millions of homes that the traditional WNBA broadcasting rights simply cannot reach.
Caitlin Clark continues adding to her rapidly growing list of career accomplishments. The Indiana Fever superstar was officially unveiled Wednesday as the cover athlete for the deluxe edition of NBA 2K27, becoming the latest WNBA player to receive one of basketball's most recognizable honors. The announcement comes in the middle of another standout.
What makes this announcement even more unprecedented is the sheer velocity of the timeline. Traditionally, the NBA 2K cover reveal is a meticulously orchestrated off-season event. It is designed to bridge the gap between the NBA Finals and the start of training camp, dominating the slow news cycles of late summer. The athletes chosen are usually coming off a championship run, an MVP campaign, or at the very least multiple years of established dominance that have thoroughly cemented their legacy in the minds of the consumer. To drop this news directly in the middle of her active season, while she is still navigating the grueling schedule of her rookie campaign, proves that the normal rules of engagement simply do not apply here. The publisher could not afford to wait until the offseason. The momentum surrounding her name is too valuable. The cultural cachet is too high. And the potential for immediate pre-order conversion is too massive to delay. They recognize that they are riding a wave of unprecedented mainstream attention, and they accelerated their entire marketing rollout to capitalize on it. It is a testament to the fact that her influence has entirely detached from traditional sports media cycles. She doesn't just dominate the news, she dictates when the news happens.
Speaking with Bleacher Report after the announcement, Clark admitted receiving the cover honor was something she never imagined as a child. Quote, "It's pretty cool and pretty surreal," Clark said. "As a kid growing up, you're always watching to see who's going to be on the next cover of 2K. She also emphasized what the recognition means for women's basketball.
There is a profound psychological shift happening here for the next generation of athletes and gamers. For the last 2 decades, Young kids playing this game have been conditioned to see a very specific archetype on the cover. The cover was the ultimate validation of male athletic supremacy in the digital space. You grew up wanting to be Kobe or LeBron or Jordan because that was the face staring back at you while the game installed. To suddenly inject a female athlete into that exact same aspirational real estate changes the entire developmental psychology of the young fan base. It normalizes female superstardom in a space that has been historically heavily gatekept by male gaming culture. When she talks about where the women's game is at, she isn't just talking about television viewership or arena attendance. She is talking about cultural permanence. A video game cover might seem like a trivial piece of marketing to some, but in the digital era, it is the equivalent of a monument. It is permanent, highly visible proof that you have conquered the zeitgeist. By the time the next generation of fans grows up, seeing a WNBA player on the premium edition of the biggest sports game in the world won't be a groundbreaking headline. It will just be the standard operating procedure. That is what actual cultural progress looks like.
The guard also reflected on sharing the spotlight with Rose and Wembanyama, calling it an honor she doesn't take lightly. She revealed she first met with Rose while attending a basketball tournament in 7th grade and called Wembanyama one of her favorite NBA players, recalling that the Spurs star once gifted her a game-worn signed jersey that remains one of her favorite collectibles.
But the part that should actually bother you comes later when you look at how this historic moment was actually executed behind the scenes. Before we get to that massive corporate fumble, we have to analyze the trio that 2K has assembled for this year's rollout. You have Victor Wembanyama on the Standard Edition, Derrick Rose on the Legacy Ultra Edition, and Caitlin on the Deluxe. This is a masterclass in demographic targeting by the publisher. Wembanyama represents the futuristic, unprecedented evolution of the NBA. Derrick Rose is the emotional anchor tapping into the deep, fierce nostalgia of the older player base who remembers his MVP peak. And then you have the deluxe cover, which serves as the bridge to the entirely new demographic of fans that have flooded into basketball over the last year. It is a perfectly balanced trifecta sharing that specific spotlight. Standing shoulder to shoulder with the most hyped NBA prospect since LeBron James and one of the most beloved point guards in modern history, validates her position at the absolute pinnacle of the sports hierarchy. It proves that the executives in charge of this franchise view her not as a side attraction, but as an equal pillar holding up the entire marketing structure of the game.
And you never thought that you'd ever see this. The Indiana Fever are actually this is really all that they have. This is all that they could muster up. 4 letters, a controller.